Take a deep breath and allow yourself to become still. For the next few moments, set aside every worry about money, every fear about the future, and every belief that prosperity is somehow distant from you. Let go of the idea that abundance is something you must chase, struggle for, or force into existence. Instead, open your mind to a greater possibility. What if prosperity is not something you create, but something you allow? What if wealth is not merely the result of external circumstances, but a reflection of an inner state? What if the abundance you desire is already seeking expression through you, waiting only for your acceptance? Many people spend their lives focusing on what they lack. They look at bank accounts, bills, economic conditions, and temporary challenges, allowing these appearances to define their expectations. They unconsciously train themselves to think from scarcity rather than abundance. As a result, they remain trapped in a cycle of worry, effort, and limitation. But prosperity follows a different law. The moment you stop identifying with lack and begin identifying with abundance, something remarkable begins to happen. Your thoughts change, your expectations change, your relationship with money changes. You stop seeing yourself as someone trying to get wealth and begin seeing yourself as someone who is already supported, already provided for, and already connected to an unlimited source of abundance. This is not about wishful thinking. It is about changing the state from which you live. It is about cultivating the feeling of prosperity before circumstances fully reflect it. It is about learning to think, feel, and act from the awareness that abundance is your natural condition. Today, we will explore 5 powerful principles that can help you receive prosperity now. These principles will guide you away from fear and scarcity and toward confidence, gratitude, wealth, and abundance. Because the moment you truly accept prosperity within yourself, you stop asking whether abundance is coming. You begin expecting it, and that expectation changes everything. When most people think about prosperity, they immediately think about money. They imagine large bank accounts, financial freedom, luxurious lifestyles, and the ability to purchase whatever they desire. While prosperity can certainly include these things, true prosperity begins much deeper than material possessions. It begins within. It begins as a state of consciousness. Before wealth appears in the outer world, it must first be accepted in the inner world. This principle is often overlooked because people are conditioned to believe that circumstances create feelings. They assume that once they become wealthy, they will feel prosperous. Once they achieve success, they will feel confident. Once they obtain abundance, they will feel secure. But in reality, lasting prosperity starts when those feelings are cultivated first. Take a moment and consider how a person living in scarcity thinks. Their attention is constantly directed toward what is missing. They worry about bills, fear financial setbacks, and focus on limitations. Even when opportunities appear, they often expect disappointment because their mindset has been shaped by lack. They may receive money, but the feeling of scarcity remains. They may experience temporary success, but deep inside, they still feel insecure. This is because prosperity is not determined solely by circumstances. It is determined by the state from which a person views life. Now consider someone who possesses a prosperous mindset. This person may not yet have every material thing they desire, but they carry a sense of abundance within themselves. They expect good things. They trust that opportunities exist. They appreciate what they already have. Instead of focusing on limitations, they focus on possibilities. Their confidence does not come from current conditions. It comes from the belief that life is full of potential. This inner state influences every decision they make and every opportunity they recognize. One of the reasons prosperity must begin within is because the mind naturally seeks evidence that matches its dominant beliefs. If you constantly identify with lack, you will notice reasons to feel limited. You will become highly aware of obstacles, problems, and shortages. But if you identify with abundance, your attention begins shifting toward opportunities, solutions, and possibilities. The world may not immediately change, but your perception changes, and perception plays a powerful role in shaping experience. Think about the difference between someone who says, "There is never enough," and someone who says, "There are always new opportunities available to me." Both individuals may be facing similar circumstances, but they are living in completely different states of consciousness. One expects limitation, while the other expects expansion. One focuses on what is missing, while the other focuses on what is possible. Over time, these expectations influence behavior, decisions, and results. Prosperity as an inner state also means learning to feel abundant before physical evidence appears. This may seem challenging because the mind often wants proof first. It wants to see the money before feeling secure. It wants to see success before feeling confident. Yet the most powerful transformations occur when you choose the feeling first. Ask yourself, if financial freedom were already yours, how would you feel? You would likely feel relaxed, grateful, confident, and supported. These feelings do not belong exclusively to a future version of yourself. They can be experienced now. When you practice feeling prosperous in advance, you begin breaking the habit of scarcity. You stop postponing peace until circumstances change. You stop making your happiness dependent on numbers in a bank account. Instead, you develop a deeper sense of trust. You recognize that abundance is not merely something you possess, it is something you embody. This does not mean ignoring practical responsibilities. It does not mean pretending challenges do not exist. Rather, it means refusing to let temporary conditions define your identity. A prosperous person may face obstacles, but they do not identify themselves by those obstacles. They remain focused on possibilities. They continue expecting improvement. They maintain an attitude of abundance even when circumstances are still evolving. Another important aspect of inner prosperity is gratitude. Gratitude trains the mind to recognize abundance in the present moment. It shifts attention away from what is lacking and toward what is already available. The more grateful you become, the more abundant life begins to feel. Gratitude creates a sense of richness that exists independently of external conditions. As you move forward, remember this simple truth: prosperity is not something that begins when money arrives. Prosperity begins when your awareness changes. It begins when you stop identifying with lack and start identifying with abundance. It begins when you expect opportunities instead of limitations. It begins when you feel supported rather than deprived. So do not wait for wealth to make you feel prosperous. Become prosperous in consciousness first. Cultivate gratitude. Expect abundance. Focus on possibilities. Carry yourself with confidence and trust. Because when prosperity becomes your inner state, you stop living as someone who is waiting for abundance to arrive. You begin living as someone who is already connected to it. And from that state, the outer world has a remarkable way of reflecting the abundance you have already accepted within. One of the most powerful shifts a person can make is to assume the feeling of financial freedom before there is visible proof of it. Most people believe that freedom comes after wealth. They think that once they have enough money, enough security, enough success, and enough resources, then they will finally feel relaxed, confident, and at peace. This belief is so common that few people ever question it. Yet it creates a cycle that keeps financial freedom perpetually in the future. The feeling is postponed until circumstances change, and because the feeling is always delayed, the desired state never becomes natural. Financial freedom is not only a condition of the bank account, it is also a condition of the mind. It is a way of thinking, feeling, and responding to life. A person can possess substantial resources and still live in fear, constantly worried about loss. Another person can be in the process of building wealth and yet carry a deep sense of confidence, expectation, and trust. The difference lies in the state they occupy. One is dominated by fear, while the other is guided by freedom. Take a moment and imagine that you are already financially free. Not tomorrow, not next year, right now. Imagine that every financial concern has been resolved. Imagine that you feel secure, supported, and at peace. What would change inside you? You would probably notice a sense of relief. The pressure would disappear. The constant worrying would fade. The fear of not having enough would no longer control your thoughts. You would approach life differently because your emotional state would be different. This exercise reveals something important. The feeling you seek is not actually money. Money is simply the symbol you associate with a deeper experience. What you truly desire is the freedom, security, confidence, and peace that you believe money will provide. The mistake many people make is believing those feelings can only come after financial success. But if you wait for circumstances to create those feelings, you remain dependent upon circumstances. The goal is to cultivate the feeling first. When you assume the feeling of financial freedom, you begin thinking from abundance rather than toward it. There is a significant difference between these two perspectives. Thinking toward abundance means seeing it as distant. It means viewing yourself as someone who does not yet have enough. Thinking from abundance means identifying with the state of already being supported. It means carrying yourself as someone who trusts in the availability of opportunities and resources. Notice how a financially free person typically behaves. They do not spend every waking moment worrying about money. They do not allow every expense to create panic. They do not constantly expect disaster. Instead, they make decisions from a position of confidence. They trust their ability to navigate challenges. They focus on possibilities rather than limitations. Their actions are influenced by expectation rather than fear. Many people unknowingly rehearse scarcity every day. They repeatedly think about debts, obstacles, and financial struggles. They imagine worst-case scenarios. They tell themselves stories about how difficult life is. Over time, these patterns become familiar. The mind begins treating scarcity as normal. But just as scarcity can become familiar, abundance can become familiar as well. The key is repetition. The more often you return to the feeling of financial freedom, the more natural it becomes. One effective way to do this is through imagination. Spend a few moments each day experiencing the feeling of already being financially secure. Imagine paying bills with ease. Imagine feeling grateful for your resources. Imagine making decisions without fear. Most importantly, focus on the emotions. Feel the relief. Feel the confidence. Feel the peace. Allow yourself to become emotionally acquainted with the state you wish to occupy. At first, your mind may resist. It may point to current circumstances and insist that you should wait until conditions improve. This is normal. The mind is accustomed to drawing conclusions from appearances. But every transformation requires a willingness to think beyond current evidence. If you continue identifying with your present limitations, you remain emotionally tied to them. If you begin identifying with freedom, you create a new internal reference point. As this new state becomes familiar, your relationship with money begins to change. You become less reactive and more intentional. You stop making decisions from desperation. You notice opportunities that fear might have caused you to overlook. You develop a stronger sense of trust in yourself and in life. This does not happen because you are ignoring reality. It happens because you are changing the state from which you interact with reality. Remember that financial freedom is more than a future goal. It is a state of consciousness available to you now. The more often you assume that feeling, the more natural it becomes. And the more natural it becomes, the more your thoughts, decisions, and actions begin reflecting it. So stop waiting for money to give you the feeling of freedom. Begin cultivating freedom within yourself today. Feel secure before the evidence appears. Feel grateful before the blessing arrives. Feel supported before circumstances fully change. Because the moment you assume the feeling of financial freedom, you stop living as someone trapped by limitation. You begin living as someone who already expects abundance. And that shift in consciousness can become the foundation for a completely different experience of prosperity. If there is one quality that has the power to transform your relationship with wealth and abundance, it is gratitude. Gratitude is often spoken about, yet very few people truly understand its depth and power. Most people see gratitude as a polite response to receiving something good. They believe they should be grateful after they receive the blessing, after they achieve the goal, or after prosperity arrives. But true gratitude is much more than a reaction. It is a state of consciousness. It is a way of seeing life. And when practiced consistently, it has the remarkable ability to shift your attention from scarcity to abundance. The human mind naturally tends to focus on what is missing. It notices problems, delays, limitations, and obstacles. This tendency may have developed as a survival mechanism, but when left unchecked, it creates a mindset of lack. A person can have countless blessings in their life and still feel poor because their attention remains fixed on what they do not have. They may receive opportunities, relationships, resources, and support, yet fail to appreciate them because their mind is always searching for the next thing that is absent. This is where gratitude becomes transformative. Gratitude redirects attention. It trains the mind to notice what is already present. It shifts awareness from deficiency to abundance. The moment you begin appreciating what you have, your emotional state changes. You stop experiencing life solely through the lens of what is missing and begin recognizing the richness that already surrounds you. Think about how different you feel when you are genuinely grateful. There is a sense of peace. There is a feeling of contentment. There is a quiet recognition that life contains many blessings, even if everything is not yet perfect. Gratitude softens the mind. It reduces fear. It replaces tension with appreciation. And this emotional shift is significant because your state of consciousness influences how you experience reality. A person who constantly complains tends to notice more reasons to complain. A person who constantly appreciates tends to notice more reasons to appreciate. This does not happen because the world suddenly changes overnight. It happens because attention changes. What you focus on grows in significance within your awareness. When gratitude becomes your dominant focus, abundance becomes easier to recognize. One of the most powerful aspects of gratitude is that it can be practiced before a desire is fulfilled. Most people wait for evidence before allowing themselves to feel thankful. They tell themselves they will be grateful when the money arrives, when the opportunity appears, or when the situation improves. But gratitude becomes even more powerful when it is experienced in advance. Imagine being thankful now for the prosperity you desire. Imagine appreciating abundance before you can fully see it. This kind of gratitude reflects trust. It reflects confidence. It reflects the assumption that good things are already unfolding. When you feel grateful in advance, you stop living in a state of waiting. You stop acting like someone who lacks prosperity and begin thinking like someone who already expects it. Gratitude becomes a bridge between your current experience and the state you wish to embody. It helps you emotionally connect with abundance before circumstances fully reflect it. Consider how a prosperous person thinks. They do not spend every day focused on scarcity. They do not constantly worry that there will never be enough. Instead, they appreciate resources, opportunities, relationships, and experiences. They recognize value where others see limitation. This mindset creates a sense of abundance that extends beyond financial wealth. It affects every aspect of life. Gratitude also changes the way you interact with money itself. Many people associate money with stress, fear, or struggle. They think about bills with anxiety. They view expenses as threats. They react emotionally whenever financial challenges arise. Gratitude helps break this pattern. Instead of focusing only on what money has not done, you begin appreciating what it has already made possible. You appreciate the food on your table, the roof over your head, the lessons you have learned, and the opportunities you have received. This shift creates a healthier and more empowered relationship with wealth. Another important benefit of gratitude is that it removes resistance. Resistance often takes the form of frustration, impatience, and disappointment. These emotions reinforce the feeling that something important is missing. Gratitude dissolves that feeling. It reminds you that abundance is already present in many forms. The more grateful you become, the less desperate you feel. And the less desperate you feel, the more naturally you align with the state of prosperity. As you move through your day, make gratitude a habit. Do not reserve it only for major achievements. Appreciate small blessings. Appreciate progress. Appreciate lessons. Appreciate opportunities. Appreciate the resources already available to you. Let gratitude become a daily practice rather than an occasional reaction. Because prosperity is not merely about accumulating more. It is about recognizing more. It is about developing the awareness to see abundance where you once saw lack. And the more you cultivate gratitude, the more abundant life begins to feel. So be grateful now. Be grateful before the evidence appears. Be grateful before every goal is reached. Be grateful before every desire is fulfilled. Let gratitude become your natural response to life. Because gratitude does not simply acknowledge prosperity, it multiplies it. And when gratitude becomes your state, abundance no longer feels distant. It becomes something you experience, appreciate, and attract more naturally every day. One of the most profound shifts a person can make in their relationship with prosperity is moving from the mindset of a chaser to the mindset of a receiver. Most people spend their lives chasing wealth, opportunities, success, and security. They believe that if they work harder, worry more, think about money constantly, and push themselves relentlessly, they will eventually arrive at the prosperity they seek. While effort and action certainly have their place, there is a hidden problem in the energy of chasing. Chasing often comes from the assumption that what you desire is separate from you. It reinforces the feeling that abundance is somewhere far away and must be pursued before it can be experienced. Think about the emotional state of someone who is constantly chasing. There is usually pressure. There is urgency. There is often fear that if they stop pushing, everything will fall apart. Their attention remains fixed on what they do not yet have. They wake up worrying about money. They spend their day thinking about what is missing. They measure their worth by their current circumstances. Without realizing it, they are repeatedly affirming the feeling of lack. The paradox is that prosperity does not flourish in the atmosphere of desperation. Desperation narrows perception. It creates stress. It causes people to overlook opportunities because they are so focused on what they believe is absent. When the mind is consumed by scarcity, it becomes difficult to recognize abundance, even when abundance is present. A receiver operates differently. A receiver understands that prosperity is not something to be hunted down with fear and anxiety. A receiver remains open. A receiver expects good things. A receiver trusts that opportunities can arrive in unexpected ways. Instead of living in constant pursuit, they cultivate a state of readiness. They prepare themselves mentally and emotionally to welcome abundance when it appears. Imagine standing outside during a gentle rain. You do not chase the rain. You simply position yourself where you can receive it. In much the same way, prosperity often flows more naturally when you become receptive rather than resistant. This does not mean sitting back and doing nothing. It means changing the emotional state from which you act. Action driven by fear feels completely different from action driven by confidence. One is exhausting, the other is empowering. Many people unknowingly block prosperity because they are so focused on forcing outcomes. They want everything to happen according to their plans. They demand specific timelines. They become frustrated when life unfolds differently than expected. In doing so, they create resistance. They close themselves off to possibilities they did not anticipate. Prosperity often arrives through channels the mind could never have predicted, but those channels can be overlooked when attention is consumed by control. Becoming a receiver requires trust. It requires the willingness to believe that opportunities exist beyond your current awareness. It requires confidence that life can support you in ways you may not yet understand. This trust does not come from blind optimism. It comes from cultivating the feeling that abundance is available. It comes from believing that you are worthy of receiving good things. One of the reasons people struggle to receive is because they secretly believe they must earn every blessing through struggle. They associate worthiness with hardship. They feel guilty when things come easily. They believe prosperity must always be difficult to obtain. But this belief creates unnecessary resistance. A receiver understands that opportunities, ideas, connections, and resources can arrive naturally. They do not reject ease simply because they have been conditioned to expect struggle. Receiving also means becoming comfortable with abundance. Many people desire prosperity, yet feel uncomfortable when it begins appearing. They may sabotage opportunities, dismiss compliments, or doubt positive developments because abundance feels unfamiliar. To become a receiver, you must allow yourself to welcome prosperity without fear. You must become emotionally comfortable with success, support, and financial growth. Practice this mindset every day. Instead of asking, "How can I force prosperity into my life?" ask, "How can I become more open to receiving it?" Instead of focusing on what is missing, focus on what is available. Instead of worrying about every detail, trust that opportunities can find their way to you. Let your mind become receptive rather than defensive. Notice how different life feels when you approach it this way. There is less tension, less pressure, less fear. You begin to feel supported rather than burdened. You stop seeing prosperity as something distant and start recognizing it as something available. The truth is that abundance often enters the lives of those who are prepared to receive it. Not because they stopped caring about their goals, but because they stopped chasing from a state of lack. They shifted from desperation to expectation. They moved from force to trust. They stopped acting like prosperity was running away from them and started living as though prosperity was already on its way. So let go of the exhausting habit of chasing. Release the belief that you must struggle endlessly to deserve abundance. Open your mind to new possibilities. Open your heart to receiving. Trust that opportunities are available. Trust that prosperity can reach you. Because the moment you become a receiver instead of a chaser, you begin aligning yourself with a completely different experience of wealth, abundance, and prosperity. And from that state, Receiving becomes far more natural than chasing ever was. Words are far more powerful than most people realize. Every day, whether consciously or unconsciously, people are affirming something about themselves and their lives. They repeat thoughts, beliefs, and assumptions so often that these ideas become deeply rooted in their consciousness. Some people constantly affirm limitation. They say things like, money is hard to earn, I never have enough, nothing ever works out for me, or prosperity is for other people. Even if these statements are spoken casually, they influence the way a person thinks, feels, and responds to life. Over time, repeated thoughts become accepted beliefs, and accepted beliefs begin shaping experience. This is why affirmations can be such a powerful tool when used correctly. An affirmation is not merely a collection of positive words. It is a deliberate choice to impress a new idea upon the mind. It is the practice of repeatedly identifying with a reality you wish to experience until that reality begins to feel natural. The goal is not to force yourself to believe something overnight. The goal is to gradually replace limiting assumptions with empowering ones. Most people underestimate the influence of their inner conversations. They pay attention to what they say aloud, but ignore the constant dialogue taking place within. Yet those silent conversations often have the greatest impact. If you spend your day mentally rehearsing scarcity, fear, and doubt, you are strengthening those states. If you repeatedly tell yourself that opportunities are limited, that success is difficult, or that wealth is out of reach, your mind begins accepting those ideas as truth. The result is that you unconsciously approach life from a position of limitation. Now imagine replacing those patterns with affirmations of abundance. Imagine beginning your day with statements such as, I am receiving prosperity now. Wealth flows to me naturally. I am open to abundance. Or, I am grateful for the prosperity entering my life. These words are not magic formulas. Their power lies in repetition combined with feeling. The more often you return to these ideas, the more familiar they become. What is familiar eventually feels natural, and what feels natural begins influencing your expectations. One of the most important principles of affirmation is that feeling matters more than repetition alone. Many people repeat affirmations mechanically while feeling completely disconnected from the words. They say the phrases, but their emotions remain rooted in fear and doubt. In such cases, the affirmations have little impact because they are not being accepted emotionally. The key is to speak affirmations with awareness. Allow yourself to feel the meaning behind the words. Even if the feeling is small at first, nurture it. Let gratitude, confidence, and expectation accompany the affirmation. Think about how different your experience becomes when you repeatedly affirm prosperity. Instead of starting the day focused on problems, you begin with possibility. Instead of rehearsing fear, you rehearse abundance. Instead of strengthening scarcity, you strengthen confidence. This shift may seem subtle, but over time it changes the atmosphere of your mind. Your attention begins moving toward opportunities rather than obstacles. Your expectations begin reflecting abundance rather than limitation. Affirmations are especially powerful because they help create a new self-image. Every person carries an image of themselves within their mind. Some see themselves as fortunate and capable. Others see themselves as limited and unlucky. This self-image influences behavior more than most people realize. If you view yourself as someone who constantly struggles, your actions will often reflect that belief. If you begin seeing yourself as someone who is prosperous, supported, and abundant, your decisions and expectations gradually change. Another benefit of affirmations is that they provide consistency. The world around you may fluctuate. Circumstances may change, challenges may arise. But affirmations allow you to return to the state you wish to cultivate. They remind you of the identity you are choosing. They help keep your attention aligned with abundance, even when appearances are temporarily discouraging. As you practice affirmations, remember that persistence is important. Do not judge their effectiveness based on a single day. Just as a seed requires time to grow, new assumptions require time to become established. Be patient with yourself. Continue returning to the ideas you wish to embody. Continue reinforcing prosperity rather than scarcity. Continue choosing thoughts that support the reality you desire. You may find it helpful to repeat affirmations in the morning, before sleep, or during moments of quiet reflection. These are times when the mind is often more receptive. As you speak the words, imagine what they would feel like if they were already true. Let yourself experience the emotions of abundance. Let yourself become familiar with the state of prosperity. Above all, remember that affirmations are not about convincing the world. They are about transforming your consciousness. They are about changing the story you tell yourself. They are about creating a new inner environment where prosperity feels natural rather than distant. So choose your words carefully. Speak wealth into your consciousness. Speak abundance into your awareness. Speak prosperity into your identity. Let your affirmations become declarations of who you are rather than wishes for what you lack. Because the thoughts you repeat most often become the beliefs you live by. And when prosperity becomes part of your consciousness, you no longer feel like someone trying to attract wealth. You begin living as someone who naturally expects, receives, and experiences abundance every day. As we come to the end of this message, remember that prosperity is far more than money. It is a state of being. It is a mindset of abundance. It is the quiet confidence that life supports you, opportunities are available to you, and blessings can flow into your experience in ways you may not yet see. Too many people spend their lives waiting for wealth before they allow themselves to feel secure. They wait for success before they feel confident. They wait for circumstances to improve before they feel grateful. But true prosperity begins the moment you reverse that pattern. Choose gratitude before the blessing appears. Choose confidence before the evidence arrives. Choose abundance before the outer world confirms it. The principles we explored today all point to one truth: prosperity starts within. When you feel prosperous, think prosperously, and expect prosperity, you begin aligning yourself with a different experience of life. You stop operating from scarcity and start operating from abundance. Remember that wealth is not only about what you possess. It is also about how you think, how you feel, and what you expect. A prosperous person is not constantly focused on lack. A prosperous person trusts, receives, appreciates, and remains open to possibilities. Let go of the belief that you must struggle endlessly to receive good things. Let go of the fear that there is not enough. Let go of every story that tells you abundance belongs to someone else. Prosperity is not reserved for a select few. Abundance is not limited. Opportunity is not scarce. There is more than enough. Walk forward with the awareness that you are supported. Carry yourself with confidence. Speak to yourself with expectation. Allow gratitude to fill your heart and possibility to fill your mind. And most importantly, remain faithful to the feeling of already being prosperous. Because the moment prosperity becomes your state, the outer world begins finding ways to reflect it. You are not waiting for abundance. You are receiving it now. Thank you so much for listening and sharing this time with me today. Before you leave, take a moment and repeat these words slowly and with feeling. I am receiving prosperity now. Wealth flows to me naturally and abundantly. I am grateful, I am supported, and I am open to receiving every blessing meant for me. Let those words become more than an affirmation. Let them become your expectation. If this message inspired you, Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who is ready to welcome greater abundance into their life. Your support helps these messages reach more people who are choosing prosperity over scarcity and confidence over fear. I would love to hear from you in the comments. What is one thing you are grateful for today? Remember, prosperity begins with awareness. The more you focus on abundance, gratitude, and possibility, the more naturally those qualities become part of your daily experience. Thank you again for being here. May your days be filled with opportunity, your heart be filled with gratitude, and your life be filled with increasing abundance. Until next time, continue expecting the best, continue believing in greater possibilities, and continue receiving prosperity now.